Hi folks, Joseph Kursky here. What does teaching with GIS look like? Here's an example from a single week of my environmental GIS course. Week 4, surveys, stories, and spatial analysis, readings and videos, foundations, cartography surveys, crowdsourcing skills. Every week I have foundations, skills, societal implications, and themes. And these are some of the skills: societal implications, communicating, location privacy, crowdsourcing, metadata, and themes: environmental issues such as invasive species, water quality, pollution, energy, and more. So in each week, in most of my courses, I have a set of videos. I have the assignments for that week. It's usually the following: videos, readings, reflections on the readings, a lab, reflections on the lab and turning in their maps that are associated with the lab, and then a short quiz, as you'll see. So here are the readings. We talk about, in this particular week, 5 forces that are important to geotechnologies and society. We talk about storytelling and geo-awareness, etc. Then we get into location privacy a little bit, and then some foundations of geospatial technology, such as topology, in this case, in this particular week. Then we talk about spatial analysis. What is it? Why does it matter? How can you do spatial analysis inside a GIS? That, to me, is what sets GIS apart from just a map-making tool: spatial analysis and spatial statistics, as you can see here. So these are the readings. A lot of graphics as well. And then we look at a lot of maps in all my courses, a variety of different maps: vector, raster, even infographics like this one, and visualizations of various kinds. Get them to think about, how do we communicate spatial information in various ways in our society? These ways are rapidly expanding, and I think students are well served to look at a variety of these and assess their data quality. Then we look at base maps a little bit in this particular week, and that concludes with looking at data formats, in this case, bathymetry of the Great Lakes, and they practice a little bit of filtering there. So there's a little bit of hands-on, but it's all interactive, and then I ask them a series of questions on that particular week's activity, or that particular week's readings. Then we go into after these readings and videos, we go into the actual hands-on activity for this particular week. It builds on what they read and what they reflect on. They create, in this case, a survey. I give them, as you can see, some instructions on how to create a survey. In this case, I'm using ArcGIS Survey 123. It's a very good tool to use for quickly getting into creating, thinking about, populating, and then mapping the results of your field survey. So for example, here's a sample survey that they could create in week 4 of this particular course. What are your initials? What's the date? What kind of litter? It's a litter survey. How many pieces? Where is that litter? And then once they do that, they collect data into that survey and collect data into each other's surveys in the class, so it fosters community and reflecting on each other's surveys and the designs thereof. And then they look at, how do we map it, and how do we label things, and how do we aggregate things, and how do we put photos on these things, and that sort of thing. So you can see some labeling in this particular web map inside ArcGIS Online that is directly getting the results of that field survey. Okay, so that is one of the activities in this particular week. They look at a variety of other surveys that are out there and other field maps. For example, this one here is a litter survey on a university campus that I set up that students populated with photographs and the types of litter. And then more importantly, of course, so what? Why do we care about water quality or litter or something like that? So taking action about, do we need recycling bins? Do we need an awareness campaign on campus, etc.? And then having them look at other field tools, field maps, quick capture, iNaturalist, and others. Then we get into a little bit of location privacy. So again, like I was saying before, all of these weeks are a combination of skills, reflections, communications, quizzes, societal issues like, hey, how many people are on their cell phones in these gigapan images? These gigapan images are incredibly detailed. Are any of the faces blurred? Do they need to be blurred? Then I have them, in preparation to create their own story map, look at other story maps. Obviously, they can't look at 4 million story maps that are online right now, but I give them a sample, and then I give them the procedures to create a story map about, in this case, trees. In this case, I've got 5 trees of Australia that I've placed online. Good on you, mates. and then they make a story map from the geotagging from those photographs. So they're automatically geotagged and placed in the right position. Then another little bit on societal issues like copyright. And then they do a little bit of spatial analysis. Remember, earlier in that week, they read about spatial analysis, so I give them an assignment to map and analyze the distribution over space and time zebra mussels. They do a trace downstream to get them thinking about how do these things migrate. They don't have legs. They can't just walk from lake to lake. But how do they migrate? And so I want them to see the connectivity of streams and lakes, and also think about the human element of attaching themselves to water cavities in boats and then having that boat go to a different body of water and then spreading that way. So looking at the mean center and the standard deviational ellipse is useful, I think, in many ways. It builds their GIS skills. It gets them thinking about, hey, what else can I use these techniques on? Is it litter? Is it water quality, etc.? Then they create that web mapping application from the survey and from the zebra mussels, and then that is it for week 4. I've got surveys, stories, and spatial analysis readings and videos, survey stories, and spatial analysis hands-on activity. As I indicated before, I do have short quizzes at the end of every week in most of my courses. There are 5 or 6 questions, and the objective is really to assess your progress, identify gaps, and reflect and be proud of what you're learning. So it's not intended to be a stress thing. What's the mean center? So that's some foundational parts of the reading. It's hey, a grouchy person on a basketball team. That's my fun choice. Hopefully no one's going to pick that one. But the geographic center of a set of map features. What are 5 forces? What's the last one? Storytelling with maps. Why is location privacy a potential concern? Tick all that apply. So a multiple choice one here. Tick all that applies so that to think about this. The best workflow for map creation and analysis in a GIS. Hey, what do they do here? What's the correct choice here? Create a map in ArcGIS Online, add data, analyze it, share map, save map, create web mapping application, and share that application. And then matching. I like to vary the style of the questions in these things. So what's the correct term? What's the correct definition for each term? So vector tiles, base maps of various types, trace downstream, determining which line segments lie between a point and the ocean, for example, in a hydrologic network, story maps, multimedia web mapping applications, topology, the interconnectivity of points, lines, and polygons and rasters in a GIS, so the relationships there. And then what's the most valuable or important thing you learned this week in our course? Sometimes I say, what's the most surprising thing? What's the most perplexing thing? What's the most puzzling thing? And this is a free answer here. I just want them to reflect on what they've learned. I think that's an important part of teaching and learning. So that is, in a nutshell, what I do. I'd love to hear what you do in different weeks in your spatial thinking GIS courses. Thanks for being with me.